Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Catherine and I am here with the Borrasca episode 2, The Woods Are Full, review/reaction. So if you just want to get to the review/reaction, go to this timestamp below. I'll put it in the description as well, but I just feel like I need to be talking about what is happening out in the world right now because it is so bonkers. So yeah. Today is June 1st, 2020 when I'm recording this. It's insane what's happening in the world right now. There are so many protests happening for Black Lives Matter and in honor of the death of George Floyd, which I think is so important. And if you can go, or if you feel like you can be safe enough to go, do it. If not, there are many other ways that you can donate and spread awareness. And I will link a link that actually Cole shared below in the description box. That'll lead you to a bunch of information about a bunch of different things when it comes to Black Lives Matter. Speaking of Cole, we found out this morning on Twitter that he was arrested last night. He's fine. He allegedly, let's like quote unquote that. He got released, and it's because in LA they put a curfew on the city for protests that they can't go past 9 o'clock. So if you were out and about past 9 o'clock, they arrested you. Whatever. But he's fine. Allegedly, the guy who tweeted about it deleted his initial tweet. So we're still not sure if it's like actually accurate, but it feels like it's something that Cole would do. So that just shows you how important this is. If I am a person who does not understand what it's like to be a Black person, obviously, but I have so many friends and colleagues and coworkers and people I respect and admire that are, and they're going through all of this racism and bigotry for no reason, just because of their color of their skin, and that's disgusting. What happened to George Floyd should never have happened. Like, never. And I've said this to like friends and family for the past like important ones that have happened, like Trayvon, Sandra Bland, like there's so many that just should not have happened. It doesn't make sense to me. And I guess it's because we live, like, I was brought up in a world where like, who gives a shit? Like, people are people, and that's how everyone should have been raised. But I like to say that racism, you aren't born with it, you choose that. And these people who have chosen to hate someone because of who they are, it's just people that I don't want to associate myself with. And on the Instagram Stay Weird Reactions, I posted this picture. I'll insert it here. And I put the caption, "All lives can't matter until Black lives matter." And I feel like that it sums up how I feel. Even though I don't have a lot of subscribers right now, but I think it's important for me to just say it anyway, because I would be doing an injustice to my friends and that are going through this right now, that are going to protest. But I just wanted to talk about it and talk about my feelings about it before this episode. I didn't even listen to it yet. I saw people like freaking out a little bit over it, so I can't wait to listen to it. Here we go. Here are The Woods Are Full. Okay, I just finished listening to it and it was so good. Oh, I'm like on the verge of tears because that was fantastic. I have 3 pages of notes only from this episode, because this episode literally, I can't wait to get into it. Okay. Woo. Okay. Oh my god, I'm still not over it. So we start with Sam back in his therapy session with his parole officer. So he's there late, and we find out that he didn't go to a meeting, which is part of his parole. So he like sort of broke his parole, but the whole thing is if he starts talking about what happened to Whitney, he can just, and he's still clean, quote unquote, because he's using his roommate's pee. Let's not forget. Okay, so then we go back, right? So he gets in the meeting, he's late, whatever. I didn't mention this last time, and I'm so bummed I didn't. I want to mention it now. The sound design in this podcast is so good. Now, sound design is just like the background noises. So the clock ticking, the doors opening, the kids laughing in the background. That's all sound design. And it's so smart because it really puts you in there. So I never really talked about myself on here yet, so I'm going to talk about myself a little bit. I'm in theater. I'm a director and a choreographer. I work on Broadway currently, not like directing or choreographing. Let's not get crazy. I sell t-shirts. But I studied all forms of theater in college. I have my degree in theater, and we talk about sound design, and sound design is so important to a play. And since they describe this as a radio play, it's very interesting to hear their sound design, because a radio play is all audio, so you don't have that visual. So the sound design has to put you in the place and put you in the scene and the setting. And I feel like the sound design for this does that with such ease. You hear the ticking and you know, okay, you know he's late to his thing, to his court-appointed therapy session. You hear the buses and the kids chattering, you know where you are. You hear loud kids, you know you're in the lunchroom. You know when you're in the woods. Like, it's so smart and genius. Just wanted to mention that because I didn't mention it last episode, and I was so bummed, and this episode was even better with their sound design, so I cannot wait for the next 6 episodes. We'll talk in a minute. Oh my god, I'm so excited. So we find out Whitney has a boyfriend. Kevin Whitaker is her boyfriend. We find that out from his sister, I think, or his brother. I don't remember. I didn't write that down. And they've been together since August. That is going to lead to one of my theories that I'm going to talk about after, but we will figure that out. We get a sense that Kyle and Kimber like each other, or definitely Kyle loves Kimber, like 100%. And I think that's cute. I remember being 12 and having like my first crush and everything, and you know, you always have a crush on your like childhood best friend. Obviously we have seen all those tropes on television, especially in Riverdale, so it's very, very cute. I had a crush on my childhood best friend, and he had a crush on me, but nothing ever happened. And so this episode really jumps. So we go from like September to January in 10 minutes. So we start first day of school. We're meeting a few of the other kids. Then we go to October and we hear the sound again. So we know that there's going to be a Borrasca party. That means someone else is going to go missing. We also find out that Krista, who was Whitney's friend who went missing over the summer, her disappearance went to being that she ran away to be with her biological father. And there is some people, including Whitney, that's like, don't buy it. Definitely not. She would never do that. And I don't buy it either, obviously. We meet Paige, who is a girl in Sam's class, so in 7th grade, that talks about the voices in the forest, but it's not really like speaking, it's laughing and screaming. Because she knows this because her sister went missing years ago. Like, she was a child. After that, what I also loved about this episode is that we cut back and forth to Sam as an adult and Sam as a kid a lot. I think it really helps tell the story to have that narrator in Cole's Sam. I think that was really cool. So we're back in the therapy session, and she's like, how many people have gone missing? And he goes, less than 100. And she goes, like, boy, like, that's so many. Why did like the FBI not get in? And he was like, that was over decades. Like, it didn't just like, it wasn't like 100 in that one summer. It was over decades, and some people didn't even say their child went missing. And she was like, why do they do that? And he's like, because they knew. Like, they didn't need the closure. They knew it was this Borrasca thing. Like, they didn't need it. But there were some people who did mark their children as missing because they didn't believe in it. So she's like, what does this have to do with Whitney? Like, why are you telling me this? And he goes, because Whitney is next. So we find out that Whitney is going to be the next one. So now we're at like after Christmas. So that's where I'm like throwing in January, because they're all coming back from school. And they have an assembly about, oh, before I get to the assembly, Sam is like still like super curious. He's still a curious kid. I think he will forever be a curious kid. I think he's going to be curious as an adult also. Not as much because drugs. So he talks to his father. He's like, this is what I've been hearing about Borrasca, and like there are voices and the skin men, da 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 da. And he goes, you're like saying the same things that Whitney is. What is she putting in your head? And he goes, she didn't. I've been hearing this at school. So we know Whitney is hearing all this stuff, and she's saying that's what happened to Krista. And she tells her dad that, but he's like, no, that's not true. So they tell each other they hate each other. And once that happened, I'm going to put a clip in right here of what I said.
Get in your room.
I have
boy.
Brother, I hate you, Sam.
I hate you too!
Now!
They're going to regret that. I said that they're going to regret that. And I know from experience, I have an older brother. We're 9.5 years apart, and there's no one in between. And whenever I would say as a kid, like, oh, I hate you. Like, or I say it now, like, oh my God, I hate you, you know. I regret it instantly, because although like we were so different, like he's still my brother. He's still my first friend. And I know if anything ever happened to me, he'd be like the first one to come. So, and I think that's what's so special about a brother and sister relationship. It's very different, a brother and sister relationship. Like I have a friend that has all sisters, and like they're all like super close, and then I have people that are brothers, like friends that are brothers, and they're super close. But a brother and a sister, it's like a protection. Like they protect each other, especially me. I'm so strong-willed that I protect my older brother more than like anyone. I love seeing this brother and sister relationship, even though the sister is older. I don't have that experience, but I see how this relationship like works because I have experienced it. Oh, also before the assembly, well, this is like right before the assembly, well, throughout the episode, we hear about Phoebe, who's bullying Kimber for not being pretty, like having red hair. And I'm just like, ugh, enough. Back to like what I talked about earlier in the video, like enough. Who cares? But she's related to the Prescotts. And like I said last episode, the Prescotts are going to be a huge thing in this. I don't know how. I don't know when, but I got a feeling. Stay tuned for the theories. And like earlier in the Borrasca episode, like when we first hear Phoebe like talking to Sam, and she's like, you don't want to be with someone who's not pretty. And then Kimber comes over and it's like, what did she say to you? And he goes, just that you're so pretty and she's jealous. And I'm like, oh my God, Sam, you're such a good friend. I love you. So now we're at the assembly, and it's about the history of the town. So it's fairly boring. Like for a normal kid. But you have Curious Sam. That's what I'm going to call him, Curious Sam. So one of the people that is presenting in this assembly is Jimmy Prescott, whose father used to give the presentation all the time. But Jimmy recently put him in a crazy house, in a mental asylum is what they say. And Sam's like, there's a mental asylum? Sign me up. And I'm like, girl, Sam. Because I'm the same way. I want to like investigate everything. So that I was like, relatable. So Sam wants to go to this asylum. This said asylum. But they're like, no, stop. Like, you don't want to go. So then we jump back to Sam as an adult, and he's like, he hates saying a specific part, so he's stalling because he's talking about this history, which they're like, why do we need this? How does this relate to Whitney? And he goes, it all relates to Whitney. And he says a precursor. He's like, listen, I'm going to sound crazy, but James Prescott is so charismatic and is so engaging. It's very like captivating. So we find out that the Prescotts revived the town in the 1950s. I think all of this is going to be important, otherwise they wouldn't tell us. It's like one of those things. And Sam was hanging on to every word that Jimmy Prescott was saying, like every single word. There's something about the iron mines being closed because of unprofitable circumstances. I'm like, dude, what? And so now he wants to like go to the mines, of course, but they can't go because they blew them up because kids died in there. Now, when we find out the kids being killed in the mines, they're at lunch, right? So the assembly was in the morning, they had lunch, and then they were going to go to class. At lunch, someone goes up to Sam and is like, there's a police officer in the office to take you home. And he goes, okay. He gets up, and it's one of his dad's colleagues. It's not his dad. So he's like, what's going on? Why did it... They won't tell me anything. What is happening? And then they're like, just sit down. They're trying to calm him down. The mom is freaking out, like rightfully so. I would be flipping if my child went missing or was missing. The dad is like trying his best. So then finally one of the other police officers starts talking, and Sam goes, hold on, where's my sister? So then comes the best sequence I have ever heard. And if this was, oh my god, if this was like a TV show or a movie, I like pictured it. Like, you see, oh my god, it was so good because you're hearing young Sam doing these things, and you hear him and he's like yelling and going through, and you hear the leaves rustling, and you have adult Sam telling you what it is, like what he experienced. And I'm like, that's genius. It's genius. So Sam goes up to Ambercott because he's like, her name has to be on the tree then, because if she went missing, like this is how I'll know that, one, this is all true, and two, that's where she is. So he goes up, he's trying to find Whitney. Adult Sam says he remembers every detail about that night. He remembers his tears being frozen on his face. He remembers everything. And it's because of trauma and PTSD. Like, this guy is going through it. He's going through it, and then he goes, I was alone. And then I wasn't. I was like, yes. Because we hear the sound again, and he comes face to face with it. Like, he says to him, please don't hurt me. And I'm like, oh my god, Sam, chill. It's like, gonna be fine. He walks towards it, and then there was a post with a sign on it that said mile marker 4, and there was an orange backpack, and Sam says that he recognized the orange backpack. So I'm like, it's Whitney's. Done. And they also said that Whitney never made it to school. So it wasn't like she went to school and was missing. Like, she never made it to school. So maybe she went out the night before, early that morning. We don't know, obviously. And then he ran away, and it took him hours, and he was just running and running and running home. Then finally someone found him at 1 a.m. because his dad had them go look for him. Then we get, time is up. He's like, I'm out. I talked about this enough today. And she asked, was Whitney's name carved on the tree? She asks him straight up. And he goes, yeah, it was. He went a few days later with a friend, and the two of them saw it. It was freshly carved. And he goes, I'm still not ready to talk about it. Like, I need a little bit more time. And she's like, you've made like exceptional progress. She says, what happened to Whitney and all these things led to his addiction. And he goes, no shit. And I'm like, duh. Then we hear that something happened to him at 17. And you're like, you were just 12. So that means 5 years later, something happened. And we don't know what it is yet. So that's why I'm like, okay, great. Now I understand why it's like 8 episodes. Because we're going to hear like the different stages. I'll go through like theories on what I think happened at 17. Because he says he saw something. So we'll go back. And she asked, do you remember what happened? And he goes, only on the bad days. So I'm like, how do you get to your bad days? What's going to happen? Then we fast forward a little bit, and we hear him in the middle of the nightmare, and his roommate, Eric, is trying to wake him up. And he's screaming Whitney's name. So I'm like, okay, interesting. Then Eric is like, I'm taking these and meaning the needles. So needles equals heroin. So we know he is a heroin addict, and he still is. And he goes, I can still get needles anywhere. Like, that's not going to stop this. Then we find out that a girl showed up to the apartment, and Eric's telling him, and she asked for Sam. And he's like, oh, it's probably just someone that needs heroin. Like, you know. And Eric's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think this is someone that is a drug addict. And he goes, how do you know? He goes, I just have a feeling. He goes, well, it doesn't matter. And then that's how the episode ends. Now it is theory time. Oh my god, I'm such a weirdo. Okay, and that's why this is called Stay Weird Reactions. Okay. So let's talk about my first theory, which is this like mysterious boyfriend. I think he has something to do with it. Or maybe people who have boyfriends. I don't know. Maybe it's the Whitaker name. Maybe they're related to the Prescotts. I don't know. Boyfriend, got something to do with it. This mental asylum. There's something up with it. I think maybe they will go and Sam will get some information, like on his hunt to look for Whitney. I think he's the type of kid that's going to keep looking for her until he gives up. And I think that's what happened. And I think that's what led him to drugs, because he's like, I should just forget about everything. And maybe they're going to talk to the dad, and maybe like to Jimmy's Prescott's dad, and that's going to give us some information. That'd be pretty cool. Prescott's, I think it's a cult. I'm calling it now, because the way Sam was like hanging on to every word, like that's very cult like. The mines, I think they're gonna go to where they were, and something, or Apricot is where the mines were, and there's something weird going on. Now what happened at 17? I think he sees Whitney. I don't know if it's like in a dream, if it's actually her, if he goes back there, something. And then who showed up? These are my options. It could be Whitney. That would be a real twisteroo. Or it could be Kimber. I think that'd be pretty interesting to see if Kimber comes. But I don't know. I think those are the two that I'm like leaning towards on who it could be. I don't think it's the like therapist. I think it's like a girl, like, you know, someone Sam's age, or, you know, around the same generation. So I can't wait. Oh my god. This episode was so good. If they're all like this is gonna be phenomenal. And I love that we're getting like little clues of what happened to Whitney. Oh, so we can totally debunk like some of the theories I had last week about like a car crash and Sam being responsible for it. Sam had nothing to do with it, I don't think. I think this was all this weird town. And I think that's what it is. The town is just weird. But yeah. I wrote on my Instagram stories yesterday that this week I am not going to post anything else because of what is happening in the world. I don't think it's correct, and you know, it's not my place to be posting about Riverdale like when we have like protests going on. So I'm not going to do it. Next week, if everything is clear and ready to go, I will post. So if you have any requests about what you want me to talk about Riverdale, please put them in below. I would love to hear it. Follow me on Instagram. Everything will be down below. Please like, comment, subscribe to my channel, because you will not regret it. And please stay safe if you are going to any protests or anything like that. Donate if you can. It's so important. And most of all, stay weird, Riverheads.